Each week, American History TV's American Artifacts visits museums and historic places. And up next, we travel to Philadelphia's Independence National Historical Park to learn about Congress Hall, the meeting place of the U.S. House and Senate between 1790 and 1800. Our guide is Park Ranger Matthew Ifill.
Because probably the best day in this room's history, in a lot of ways, is the day John Adams is inaugurated at the front by the Speaker of the House's platform. He will stand on that platform with Thomas Jefferson, also at the front of the room, outgoing President George Washington. Now, this is a big deal. Changing presidents for us today is a fairly normal thing. We have big parades and parties, and it's a big thing. But this was a really important day because this is where we are proving that the system where we, the voters, elect our leaders and we change them when we vote, we're proving that that system works. Because the John Adams election is a lot of firsts. It's the first time we're going to not have George Washington as our president. George Washington is the only man to be unanimously elected president, which he was twice. He did not particularly run for office. At the end of his first term, he didn't even want a second term. He was kind of talked into it. Essentially, kind of almost guys on both sides talk him into another 4 years. He doesn't really run. He's unanimously reelected. At the end of that second term, people try to talk him into a third, but he's not having it. He just wants to retire at this point in time. It's somebody else's turn. So he will step aside for John Adams. Now, we don't know if this works. We've never done this before. We've never actually changed our president. So will the people accept this? We don't know. The other thing to remember is John Adams was contested in his election. He actually had to fight a battle against his opponent, who was Thomas Jefferson. Now, these two had been friends. Obviously, they wrote the Declaration of Independence together, but now opposite sides of the fence, they don't even want to talk to each other. So the election is very ugly, it's very nasty, it's very close. It's sort of, for us today, a normal presidential election. John Adams wins by 3 electoral votes, so only slightly more than half. Now, we've never had a president who got only half the votes. We've never had a president who had to really fight for an election. And of course, the other problem in those early days is if you come in second, you are vice president, which means the new president is one party, the new vice president is the other party. Just pick any modern election you like, put the two opponents together for 4 years as the executive, and you can see how neither of them would be particularly happy. So John Adams and Thomas Jefferson are not happy to be standing up in the front of the room together. This is a full house that day. The balcony, the seats, you've got most of the government here, a lot of curiosity, but you can also figure about half of the men in this room are not very happy to see John Adams standing up there. The other half of the men in the room are not very happy to see Thomas Jefferson standing up there. And generally speaking, nobody's very happy that George Washington is leaving us in this time. So John Adams would kind of look around the room and see a lot of people who weren't very happy. He'd see people with almost tears in their eyes that Washington was leaving them. And he kind of would later say that as he looked around, he only saw one person that day who particularly looked happy, which was, of course, George Washington, who had a look on his face that said, "John Adams, you are fairly in and I am fairly out." So now let's find out who's the happier on this day. But Washington would quietly go to private life and I think very happily withdraw from the scene. Adams himself would be inaugurated. He would have a difficult presidency because now really we're seeing the throes of political fighting going on. But it happened peacefully. We proved that Constitution worked, and we proved that we could continue in times of difficulty like this, that we could continue forward with the system in place. In 1800, they would leave this building and move to the current capital in Washington, D.C. Adams and Jefferson would have another difficult election at that time, this time Jefferson winning, and he would be the first president inaugurated in the new capital of Washington, D.C. But these years in Philadelphia are setting the tone for the rest of our early history and all the way up to today.